on our chapter on ethics here for our human relations course. Welcome. I am Professor Jessica. So, here we are talking about social responsibility. It has been around for decades. And this is really the fact that we are looking at being ethical within organizations. And of course, it's both the companies as well as the people that engage in social responsibility. And being socially responsible, which is the key component here of social responsibility, obviously, shows that we are both socially aware as well as can manage ourselves. So we are paying attention to how our decisions impact other people. So this little video will talk about how we are looking at social responsibility, both at the organizational level and then at our personal individual level. So social responsibility is, as I've already mentioned, something that has been around for decades. And I think, let's see, yes, my pen will work. There's a little bit slower today. Maybe it's tired as well. Um, what I was going to say is that originally, corporate social responsibility might have been more about philanthropy, about providing money, giving money. And it looks very, very different today, where we are looking at things such as making sure our supply chain doesn't disrupt the environment and people, right, too much. We are looking at things such as our carbon footprint. We are looking at things such as how our work is impacting labor, right? So, are we taking human rights into account? What is happening in the environment? So, we have moved from philanthropy to actually looking at the impact of our business operations. And still, philanthropy is important part of that. It's not only that. Of course, as we've talked about throughout, the fact that people make up organizations, so it's very hard to separate the person from the organization. So we look at personal ethics as well as corporate ethics. We are, of course, paying attention, as I just overviewed, of how our impact, our operations impact the society, our stakeholders, the globe in which we operate. Some organizations do it better, right? They do it wholeheartedly and authentically. And some people still do the greenwashing, meaning they're doing it for the PR. And that comes across maybe as a little bit fake, right? And for those companies that are possibly not doing it authentically, they do what they think they need to do to make sure they look good in our eyes. And so sometimes there are still big oopses from these organizations. This particular chapter in your textbook was talking about the oil spill in the Gulf of Texas. And I've talked about that in other videos. There are four different areas of social responsibility and ethics, and they are on the next slide, and they apply both to the individual level as well as to organizations. So we'll go there next. So here are the four different areas of social responsibility. So the first one is the economic. And obviously, as an organization, we have a obligation to our shareholders, right? To those owners of the organization, that we are actually maintaining profitability. And at the individual level, we want to make sure that we balance our budgets, that we are staying within our means, that we are making more money than we are having costs incurred for us. The legal aspect is clearly just the baseline. We have to follow the law. The law is different in different organizations. No, that's not what I meant to say at all. The law is different in different countries and maybe even in different regions within the country. That is what I meant to say. So here in the United States, we have federal laws, we have state laws. Sometimes we even have local jurisdictions and regulations that we have to pay attention to. So if we are operating across state lines, across borders, country borders, we obviously will have lawyers and attorneys that make sure we follow the law. And so that is the baseline. Every human being, every organization follows the law or should follow the law. Ethical is going over and beyond those legal requirements that we just talked about. And so this is making sure that we are paying attention to what is right and what is wrong and doing the right thing. And as we have talked about throughout this chapter, there's a lot of gray zones, and that's why we have the decision making tools and processes that I've talked about in other parts to help us with that. Philanthropy, giving back. I talked about that briefly on the prior slide. We want to make sure that we give back to society, to community, not just with money, although money, of course, helps. But we do it with time, goods, services, other ways. And I apologize, I have a new setup for my computer, and the pen is certainly not really wanting to work with me today. It's very slow and doesn't put the markings where I want them to be. So I'll be working on learning that. So companies as well as humans obviously should work to make sure we're meeting the bare minimum of these four areas. So the philosophy behind corporate social responsibility, individual social responsibility is obviously for us to make sure that we are not harming our community, that we are not harming the environment, that we are giving back, that we are contributing positively. And in past years and in past decades, companies have looked at that and said, no, I don't want to do it. It's going to be costly. It's going to be harmful for my profits. And so it was really an either or proposition. They said, I can either make a profit or I can be good to my community. And so that's when we had Michael Porter and Mark Kramer from Harvard, distinguished Harvard University. They came out with the idea of CSV, creating shared value. And so more recently, we're looking at social responsibility as something that is good for the company, good for the organization to do. And there's lots of research that shows that if you have a mission and a vision that contributes positively, both to your shareholders for profit and also for your community, right? You're taking care of your employees, you're taking care of your customers, you are minimizing your environmental impact, etc. That is actually a win-win. Employees love it, customers love it, and you're actually better off as an organization. And we're talking about this as creating shared value, right? Of course, you want to make sure that you're reducing materials throughout the process, because that is cheaper for you as a company. And wow, look at that. We are not harming the environment as much. If we're taking care of our employees, that's less costly in terms of their health, right? Their health is going to be better, but also for our organization, because we are not incurring costs related to healthcare. So CSV recognizes that there can be a win-win situation, that there is a win-win situation, and there is not this trade-off myth that if we're focusing on one, we cannot focus on their other. So CSV. And lastly, we're going to jump to the individual level. So ISR, individual social responsibility. So what can we, as people, what can we do? So we are being aware of how our personal actions impact the community in which we're in. And like organizations, we don't want to harm the community we're in, and we want to make sure we make them better off. And so we can engage in charitable acts. We can give money, we can give time, we can work for the community, we can speak up and support issues that impact our society. And of course, we want to make sure we keep our integrity and honesty, and that's at the individual ethics level. And so on the right side of this slide here are some examples of what we can do. We can donate time, we can recycle, we can work in homeless shelters, etc., etc. As long as every person, right? Imagine a world where every person does something for the community. What a beautiful world we would live in. Something to aspire to, right? We will also briefly mention the triple bottom line, which is a concept related to corporate social responsibility. And it means that instead of just looking at the single bottom line, which is typically the profit, which is your first bullet point here, profit is what we need to do as an organization because we have obligations to our shareholders, to our owners. Clearly, we want to make sure that we make a profit. But we are not just looking at the profit as one of the bottom lines. We are also looking at the planet, with the environment, with the community, and also the people that we are touching. And that is not just the employees, but again, the people in our community, our customers, our vendors, etc. So the triple bottom line acknowledges that there is more than profit, and it spells it out with profit, planet, and people. So for exercises, firstly, if you want to dig in deeper into this, you can name and discuss at least 2 companies that you think are socially responsible. And then look at those 4 areas of social responsibility and how do they meet those. And what do you think? Do you think it is here in number 2 possible for companies to be socially responsible in one area but not another? Maybe see if you can find some examples of that. So, in summary, social responsibility is defined as the duty of business to do no harm to society, and we can also say to contribute positively, to add value back. There are 4 levels of social responsibility. They include economics, legal, ethical, and philanthropy. People used to believe that this was an either or relationship, right? It's a trade off, an inverse. However, we know that today we have CSV, where both parties can benefit and be better off. So it's not one or the other. Individual social responsibility refers to our awareness of how our personal actions impact our community. And we can do things like volunteer, give money, and speak up for issues that affect the rights of other people. Lastly, we have the triple bottom line that refers to people, profit, and planet. So with that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much. See you next time.